begun, so let's get started. We got to do the minutes. Rich Brown sent in some emendations, so is it okay if I go over those?
Sure.
Okay, so as you go down to the first page after the line towards the bottom, all large arrays shall be well screened, further details to be worked out, questions still under consideration. The next two lines should be taken out. Those were in my notes, but they were not discussed. So should there be required minimum space, should there be, those two lines should be eliminated.
Because we didn't discuss that.
No. And then on this page 2 of 2, should the amendments be split into two amendments, one for small and medium and another for large? So that's second large should be medium.
Right.
Okay, and then Rich Brown wanted to add, I guess it would be after, in this a space, and then after that, what I just read. And this is what he had. Hebe Quinton produced a summary. He has the number 371.
Well, we can fix that.
Okay, so he produced a summary of whatever the number is, survey results, incorporating both online entrees and those typed by the board members from the paper responses. The board received about a dozen paper responses. What was it, 14?
It's 14, yep.
All right, so I'll just put in 14. Paper responses after the deadline. Hebe Quinton volunteered to enter them into the online survey, then produce a new summary. The board did not feel that these new additions I added would materially change the results. And I changed his language here a little bit, but not in terms of intent, and would add to the survey's inclusivity. Okay. Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah.
John, what was the first part again, the very beginning?
Oh, you enjoyed it so much you want to hear it again?
Yeah, what was?
Hebe Quinton produced a summary of whatever the number survey results, incorporating both online entries and those typed by the board.
Okay, yeah,
What?
yeah, that's fine, I just.
Okay.
I would just actually recommend taking out the number. Just, I don't think it's
Okay.
really relevant.
344.
I mean, if you want to change it, if it's
Yeah, it's
344.
344. And then they've got a 14 after the deadline.
Yeah, I have the 14.
Yeah.
All right.
There's a missing period in the fourth paragraph under item 2. The second sentence that's in parentheses needs a period. Ordinarily, I would put the period before the final parentheses, but I think you follow a different convention with this, David, so however you want to do it.
So which line is that?
Paragraph that begins discouragement of clear cutting. The very next sentence says need to work out details and ask town council for legal input, and there's no period.
Oh, that's probably my fault. David asked for my notes, or the board asked for my notes. So these were just sloppy notes of mine. So that's my fault.
No biggie, we'll put a period in there.
Okay.
And
Anything else?
Yeah, could you just repeat the, you changed Rich's wording, and I didn't get that completely.
Okay. I add new additions would materially change the results and would add to the survey's inclusivity.
Okay. Got it.
Okay, are we ready to vote on this?
Yeah,
All right, I'd like to make a motion to amend the minutes as through Rich Brown, John Sadler, and David Kahn. Is there a second?
Second.
Or somebody second? All those in favor?
I,
Okay,
I'm gonna abstain because I was absent.
sure. Understandable. So, here's a suggestion, but we can do whatever the board wants. The issues, the two issues that I think we need legal input on before we debate them are the obviously the issues about the trees, which I'm not particularly optimistic about, but it's worth getting the input. And then the issue of primarily serving Lyme's residents and businesses. I think we need to get Laura's input on that. I wrote a draft to Laura, and David Robbins said he thought the best way would be if I gave you a dramatic reading of it. So are you ready?
Yes,
In a high participation survey, sizable majorities of Lyme citizens made two policy preferences clear regarding large solar arrays about which the planning board seeks legal counsel. One, voters do not want to allow large arrays where woodland was clear cut for the primary purpose of installing the array. That said, the right to cut is not one that the board can interfere with. A possible alternative is to disqualify more recently clear cut land from large solar development. That way, the right to cut remains unharmed, but doing so on the assumption that this would allow development of a large solar array on that land would not work. Here is some wording for your consideration. Any site which has an area of over an acre that has been clear cut within the last 5 years shall not qualify for large solar development in that area. The word large is provisional. Your thoughts and suggestions on this matter would be appreciated. Number two, voters also showed a very strong preference that multi-acre arrays be limited to those projects that primarily serve Lyme residents and businesses. Would something like the following be workable? At least, and we can decide what the percentage is provisionally, I don't think it matters, at least X% of any power produced by a multi-acre solar development in Lyme shall be credited and or directly supplied to Lyme's residents and or businesses. Again, your legal input would be appreciated.
and I had one comment. In the beginning, there's a part where you said would not work. It would not
Yeah,
work.
but that way, the right to cut remains unharmed, but doing so on the assumption that this would allow development of a large solar array on that land would not work.
Yeah, and I wondered if we should add for a period of time. Because it would work. After a period of time, right?
Right, after the 5 years.
Yeah. So should we add? After it would not work for a period of time? I think it was in there. Well, no, you said it would not work, period. Okay.
It's fine with me.
I mean, I just thought it might make it a little clearer to.
Okay. So you want for a period of time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is
Everybody else
the
has-
5 years an appropriate period of time? I mean,
Well, you know, it doesn't really matter at this point because what we're trying to do is get her feedback. And we can change the number.
Right.
But, you know, I think there's a good chance she's just gonna tell us, you know, not to go there.
Yeah.
right,
But we can just take it from there.
hey, John, I had another concern, and that is the definition of clear cut. Cause
Okay.
if you go to the dictionary just randomly online, it says twice, that, you know, it's every tree cut down or removed. So people could just cut down the trees and not remove them, and we would be using the wrong terminology. So we
Okay.
would need to either, you know, have a definition of clear cut that actually said, well, you know, just the trees are cut, not removed, as like Oxford Dictionary says.
Okay,
So, but let's just see if we get there. I mean, but I just wanted to point that out. I think we need to define clear cut.
that's a very good point. Shall I leave it this way for the time being?
Yes. Yeah, so we can fret about that. If she says, oh yeah, sure, you can go ahead and try to regulate that. Yep.
Okay. So is this acceptable to everybody?
Sounds good.
I have a question though, in terms of the clear cutting, I mean, we certainly have regulatory control if somebody comes in. And they have a wooded site and they wanna clear 5 or 8, 7 acres for the purpose. At that point, we can say, no, we don't think your application's appropriate because you're going to have to clear that land. Is that correct?
I don't think I'm not sure about that.
No, the harvesting rules are regulated by the state, like the state has preempted town's ability to prevent people from harvesting wood. And, so, I mean, if there was a, you know, kind of public purpose where, oh, we need to keep a screen, you know, natural vegetation, something like that, but for, you know, cutting,
But
harvesting
if somebody's
trees.
bringing in an application and it's a wooded site,
Mm-hmm,
and they say, here's my application,
mm-hmm,
I wanna do this.
mm-hmm.
And we say, no, we're not going to approve it because
Well,
we're
that's
not
the
gonna.
question we're asking
That's, yeah,
council.
right,
Yeah, I
right,
think that-
yeah.
So we can't even
We don't-
deny an
we
application
don't know.
where the,
We don't know, we need to get.
No, I mean, you know, the Act 250 has stuff, you know, ridge tops and that, but it, you know, in New Hampshire, state has
Well,
preempted.
we couldn't say, no, you can't harvest the wood.
Right,
The
that's right.
question is, could we say, no,
to the application.
you can't build a solar array on the property if you have to cut the trees down to build the solar array?
Right,
Right.
That's an open question and I think we should get legal input before we spend too much time debating it. Because the
yeah, well,
lawyers may just say no, and then
Yeah.
in that case, we're done.
right.
Or they may say, here are the rules, and then we have to craft language that complies with whatever they tell us.
So my question then, apropos Rich's point, he's kind of framing it in a different way, which is saying, you know, there is no 5-year rule. We're just saying, if you come in and you want to clear cut as part of your application, can we say no?
But we might wanna change it so that if there's a certain number of acres they could, if they had, say, they had 7 acres and 5 of it was already open, they only wanted to clear cut 2 acres, you know, would we allow that?
But that's something I think you need
That's
to.
something we have to
that-
talk about.
Talk about later on.
Right,
If-
right, wrong, but that's,
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Let's say
my,
As, somebody has, you know, a solar company comes in, they've got an option on a parcel for lease. They're probably not going to go and clear cut it before they apply. They're gonna come in, they're gonna say, this hillside looks great, we're gonna cut these 5 acres or 4 acres or whatever it is to make the project work.
Right.
And at that point, do we as a board have the ability to say, sorry, we don't think that site's
Yeah.
appropriate, and.
right, and that's what the attorney is gonna,
Maybe,
Well,
yeah, maybe, we should find out. The answer is we
so
don't. know.
my question is, should I phrase it the way Rich is presenting it as a second way to ask Laura?
I think Laura's gonna get this. I think we just need to pose the question, can we, you know, are there legal rules that limit our ability to limit the clearing of trees prior to the installation of the solar array? And if so, what are they?
Right.
Well, that's what I'm asking, because that's different than what I wrote. Should we? How do you want to ask the question?
Yeah, it is two different questions, because in one case, the trees are already gone. And in the other case, they're not, so that is actually two different questions for the legal. Because if they're just answering whether we can limit cutting down trees, it's gonna come to us as they're already cut down. So obviously we can't limit that. So that's a question of limiting the placement of a solar array there. Because
Because they cut. the
of
tree.
intention.
Right.
And then the other way is that they're asking to cut down the trees as part of the installation. There
So-
were,
So can we ask the question in the simplest way? Or do you want to stick with?
Well, I think the way the way you just stated it was really good.
David, can you state the way you really
You
nailed
said-
it?
Yeah, I mean, really what we want to know is, are there legal rules that apply to the clearing of trees or other growth prior to granting a zoning permit? And if so, what are they?
And
Okay,
then maybe we could say, for example, if somebody's clear cut the property, do we have any restrictions, or do we have the ability to put a 5-year cap on it?
Yeah, or whatever.
And-
yeah.
And secondly, if the application involves extensive cutting, can we limit that?
Okay, will the board allow me and David Robbins to craft this so we don't spend too much time on this?
Sure.
Okay, and the second thing is okay with you, so,
Well, John,
David-
I wanted to talk a little bit about offering the power primarily to Lyme.
yeah, please,
Because that's the language of the question was primarily.
right,
So I think we need to phrase the question in that. Can we in some way control the marketing of the power so that Lyme residents and businesses would have the first option to purchase power?
well, I don't think it's first option. It's
'Cause if-
primarily, it's
but
not, it's
If
not
nobody
first
wants to
option,
buy it. If nobody wants to buy it,
they shouldn't be building.
but that's not what the question asked. It asked, well, what they said is, I have to get the question. It says,
but
should we limit construction of multi-acre solar arrays to those projects serving primarily Lyme residents and businesses? And the answer was a resounding yes. So it's not about offering it first. It's about limiting the projects to those that serve primarily Lyme.
so, but that would require whoever wanted to do the project to do like a marketing survey
Probably.
and have customers lined up. Is that what you're envisioning? Because I think you're getting into tricky territory of limiting
We could
market.
make it a percentage too. We wouldn't have to make it 100%. We could decide on a percentage too.
I'm just thinking you're getting into rocky territory when you're talking about limiting.
Well, that's why we're getting, that's what the survey asked. And I'm not gonna manipulate it into something else. What,
No,
what-
I wasn't trying to. I was just trying to make it operational.
this is operational, but what we need to find out is if it's legal. If it's not legal, we can't do it.
Yeah, so that's the first thing to find out, I guess, but yeah.
Yeah, again, it's just a question of, are there legal rules applicable to this sort of a limitation?
Yeah.
And if she's,
If there are, but
Yeah.
now the question you're raising is, does this make any sense? I'm kind of inclined to agree with you that I don't think it does, but
Tricky.
we asked the question and we got an answer, so now we gotta live with that.
Well, yes, I mean, we can respect it as much as possible within the laws of the land.
exactly, that's why we're getting legal input. So, that part. I have at least and then blank of any power produced. Should I put in a number or just say, X percent?
I think you just
Yeah.
put X% because it really doesn't matter what that percentage is. If it's,
Yeah,
if it's legal, it's legal. If it's not legal, it's not legal.
Right. Okay, all right, so let's move on. David Robbins and I will work on that and get that out. Maybe even tomorrow, which would be great. You're in tomorrow, right, David?
I am in
Yeah.
tomorrow.
And
All
it-
right.
It has to go through the select board, right? 'Cause
Nope, I'm allowed to talk to town council.
Yeah, and it would be really nice if we got an answer before next Thursday, if possible.
Yeah.
We will see.
You can try.
Yeah, unfortunately, our attorneys sometimes answer quickly and sometimes they don't.
Yeah,
Okay. So, last week oh God, let me just get rid of this. Last week, we went over, things and we had a pretty good consensus. Are we all still good with that consensus?
I'm not sure I'm agreeing with the consensus of limiting large panels to just south of the village.
Okay,
Did you all get Mark Bollinger's remarks?
Yeah.
yes,
Cause I thought he made a good point about if we place enormous emphasis on screening and unobtrusiveness in the guidelines, that the site becomes less important. What road it's on becomes less important.
you know, I really want to honor the survey. And I think it's a big deal to sort of say, well, here's what the town voted. But in our wisdom, we don't like it. In terms of viability, at least, you know, my attitude about it is, the town said it wants south of town on Route 10, and it's our job to make it viable. And that's what we were asked to do. So I disagree, but all you others can talk about it.
I guess I bring it up because I think that where I kind of fall on the issue is that I think that we should be encouraging a certain amount of solar. But I think in doing so, I think we also want to maintain the integrity of the town as we know it, and in doing so, I think that we have to you know, put some pretty strict guidelines in terms of what these things are gonna look like. And therefore, I don't know that there are that many sites in town overall. And I'd rather see a good site developed in perhaps other portions of the town, if they exist, as opposed to putting 3 or 4 or X number, you know, all of our eggs in one basket along Route 10, which is going to lead to the pressure of, you know, what does unobtrusive mean versus I can't see it. And so I think we have more options if we open it up, and it's not like I mean, we're using this survey for general guidance, but it wasn't an election on what we should be doing.
so. What we-
I mean, I respect that point of view, but you know, then why did we ask the questions?
Maybe-
My inclination is to stick to as close as possible. Otherwise, we're picking and choosing our preferences over the towns.
Rich, I was gonna say, what other areas are three-phased? Only Dorchester Road,
What's all the areas that we had on,
Yeah, we
on
listed
the
them.
survey?
yeah, Dorchester Road, Baker Hill,
Acorn
And-
Hill,
and East Thetford.
East Thetford and Goose Pond Road.
Really? Goose Pond Road, yeah. I guess-
Yeah,
Oh, that's
out
New
past
Hampshire
the Four
Co-op.
Corners.
Yeah.
We've
Out
got,
past the-
Well, that's, was that just Eversource's?
No, that includes New Hampshire Co-ops.
Yeah.
That Baker Hill is New Hampshire Co-op.
Yeah.
Yeah, that puts us in the position of having asked the town for input. The town is providing input.
Right.
And you only have certain areas that got a majority approval, and we just say, well, yeah, but we think that's stupid, so we're gonna do what we want.
Yeah, and
Yeah, well, that's what John's saying.
I agree with John. I
We
think if you
also-
ask the question, you kind of have to follow the advice you get.
we didn't,
Yeah.
we didn't say what the second most popular place was or the third in our communication with the town, so I think it'd seem odd if we did something else than what we reported.
Well, and the other thing I think to consider is that in the future, if we find that it's impossible, to put anything on Route 10 South, this can be amended. If we find that there's all this pressure and we really need it, it could be amended.
yeah, the other thing is, what the town shows was up to 7 acres. And that includes less than 7 acres. Mark himself pointed out 4 sites that might qualify with various issues. But that's certainly not spot zoning. And if we make it feasible, there can be up to 7 acres and there can be less.
Well, I think we're talking, I mean, I think we're also, in the back of our minds, we're also thinking that we're gonna have an ordinance, the ordinance that we've already prepared that's gonna go for small and medium size. And as I'm thinking of it, the small and mediums are gonna go anywhere. So.
Well,
What we're
again,
talking about are the 1 megawatt systems.
Right.
That require 5 to 7 acres of land.
So
Rich, you pointed out last year that, the structure we had with last year's amendment included an arcane measuring system. And as you pointed out, some of the things that we had in there were way off and were as large as 2.5 acres. So again, we asked for a 1/2 acre, we asked for a 1 acre, we asked all these different questions. And for us to go in and say, well, these smaller ones can go anywhere, that's not what we asked. Why can they go anywhere? The small arrays can go anywhere. We all agree on that. But to say that a 1/2 acre or 1 acre, 1.5 acre, 2 acres can go anywhere, based on what?
Oh, I guess maybe I'm misunderstanding it. I'm thinking the multi-acre was for like a 1 megawatt
And above.
system and above,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's the way I look
Or,
at it.
or at least a 1/2 megawatt and above.
So then why did we put in the question about, we have preferences of small scale roof and ground mounted, 1/2 acre, 1 acre or less, 2 acres or less, 5 to 7 acres and greater than 5 to 7 acres. The least popular ones were a 1/2 or less and 1 acre.
Well, don't you assume that if they went bigger than that, then they were okay with the littler ones?
Yes, but in the context, but in the context of what we're asking them, which includes locations. It just, I mean, I don't know why we're just making assumptions that have nothing to do with the survey. How can we just say that the smaller ones can go anywhere?
So you're basically reversing then the structure of the draft that didn't include the very large arrays that you guys did last year, right?
The measurements we did, the reason, a large part of why we didn't send it to town is because we realized, number one, we didn't know what we were doing. And number two, that the measurements were completely misleading. And not only the town didn't understand the size of these things, but neither did the board.
The question is where should multi-acre solar arrays be allowed?
Right, and the question is also, what sizes?
I
And the
think
le-
that I think they're independent questions.
So can you make the assumption, if they're independent questions, that the two least popular options should go anywhere in town? I don't get that.
A really twisted way to look at it.
Well, thank you for your charming analysis. I would say the opposite.
So, yeah, because we're saying in here, I don't know if this is up to date. we're
Well, we
saying-
are saying 20,000.
Well, we have to change that, because that, if we go up to 7 acres, it's more than,
I mean, 20,000 is not gonna fit in 1 acre, 10,000. 10,000 square foot.
An acre's 40,000 square feet.
40.
No, I know, I'm
43.
talking about a solar array of 10,000, a drip. I'm going with the footprint language here.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that 10,000 square feet is gonna be about right for 1 acre.
Cause you need space in between them and around them and the
But
whole.
see, I think we've made a huge mistake. We have to get rid of this whole drip line thing. People don't, it's the size of the array that counts. That's the only thing that counts, meaning the size of it. You know, the outside dimension of it. It's just so confusing to try to say, you know, the panel's 70%. It's the size of the array. That's what we have to use.
Size of the land.
Size of the land that it's on, yeah. Because I went through 21 towns zoning ordinance. I spent a bunch of time, and in all those that have solar amendment, there's none of them that use that. They all just use the size of the solar array, you know, because that's what you see and that's what it is. So I think we should,
Okay, but whether we do or we don't, we could separate it into small arrays, which are up to 2,000 square feet, which is gonna correlate with something like a fraction of an acre, a small fraction of an
you
acre.
know, an acre's 43,000, so it would be an eighth of it.
Right, okay, and then medium-sized arrays are up to 10,000, which would really probably put it at a limit of 1 acre. And then, to be consistent with the delivery of our survey, multi-acre arrays would be anything over 1 acre that up to a megawatt system. And that would be multi-acre, and so the questions would apply to those. So basically, we just shift away 10,000 feet towards the medium, allow those anywhere, which was our original proposal, and then go with multi-acre, starting at, you know, what we would say greater than 10,000 or greater than a fraction of an acre, or greater than 1 acre, as being ones that have to be in the solar district.
I like the structure. I like having the small, you know, solar arrays. I like then having, what would that be then, the medium?
Medium would be up to 10,000 square feet or 1 acre.
Okay, and then
Between 10,000.
multi-acre would be multi-acre. Now, when you say anywhere, you know, if that's what you
No,
guys want,
not anywhere. No, I'm sorry. You had defined in the previous write-up 3 districts, the rural, the commercial, and the skiway, as being places where these could be sited. And so we
Large array.
would keep, no, the small and medium
Yeah,
would be, and obviously the solar district, which we would have to define, would also be eligible to have those. So 4 different districts would be able to have them up to a 10,000 square foot or 1 acre array. And then anything above that would only be eligible for siting in the solar district.
Anything above 1 acre.
Right, up to a megawatt,
Up to 7 acres.
up to, yeah,
Up to 7
which we're assuming is about a megawatt.
Well, megawatts between 4.5 and
We're,
5.
anyway, we're not doing it.
That seems to be bandied about, but that's the gist of it.
Nat, I think that's generally a good idea, but I don't think we're not gonna bring up megawatts. We have up to 7 acres.
Yeah,
And-
well, you can just translate it into acres, but I
Right.
think
Yeah,
that would be the. I mean, the reason that the megawatts is important for us to bear in mind is that that's the threshold for making money, the commercial people.
Well,
And
we did bear it in mind. That's how we came up with these questions. That's why we have the 5 to 7 acres.
right.
Right.
So I guess I'm just thinking, well, that's the threshold. That probably means that we're limiting commercial interest in building big arrays here. By keeping it right at that, that's your maximum
Right.
size.
But
I
they could
think
do one site.
They could, and we could conceivably write into this. As was suggested by the Kearsarge write-up,
Yeah.
a max number of square foot of solar panels. Equal, he said it's fairly common in zoning write-ups to limit, like, say, we limited it to 250,000 square feet, which is probably about 1 megawatts. Because
You mean
you know,
one site, limit to
no,
one site or
no,
total? of the
total
town?
in the town.
Yeah, okay.
Total in the town, aggregate total in the town, and that would at least allow us to keep a cap on. How much, and give us a response to these people that are going to say, for God's sakes, they're gonna build these things all over the place.
Actually, Nat, I'm not sure about that at all. He did not have a lot of experience in New Hampshire. And I've never seen a cap anywhere in any town. So I wouldn't assume that,
Oh, okay.
but we can find out.
He put that in his comments that.
I know, I
And I
recall, you're right.
assumed he had some experience, but,
When we pressed him on various things, he said he didn't know the New Hampshire ordinance like the other places. I'd like to ask the board in general. It sounds like there's support for having these smaller arrays in the other districts that Nat pointed out. So I'd like to basically get a sense of the board, whether that's supported. I know clearly Rich Mengy, I think Rich Brown supports it. Hebe supports it. Who does everybody support it? Please, everybody, either for a show of hands, just speak up so we can move on.
On just so I'm clear on this. Small, are we saying small is anywhere, I mean, that's on people's houses and all that,
Well,
that's small, right?
we had
And
considered,
then medium is what, 2,000 to 1 acre?
2,000 to 10,000. So if
Yeah.
you do, if we stick with the square feet, then small would be up to 2,000. I've never seen a home installation that's that big. I mean, that's like 4 or 5 homes,
Yeah, okay.
which
so-
if you had panels with a drip edge of 2,000 square feet,
Yeah.
but still, we had considered that small. And then medium would, instead of going from 20,000, from 2,000 to 20,000, make it 2,000 to 10,000. Because 10,000 should be you should, I mean, we can check the calculations, but 10,000 should be doable on 1 acre.
So
Based on.
let's not get too,
But the
let's not
10,000
get
is
too,
the total
too hung
size,
up on the exact
not
numbers.
the total size.
Total, no, it's the drip edge.
Well, we wanna get rid of that.
No, we're not doing the drip edge anymore.
We wanna get rid of the drip edge completely. We don't even wanna talk
That's
about
why we didn't go ahead with a vote.
Well, the only way to figure this out is to start with, the panel size. And then maybe go back to the, some of the images that Rob Bollinger gave
Mark,
us.
Mark, yeah.
Mark Bollinger gave us about that one in Maine. And you see what the megawattage of a 5-acre array is, and therefore you can guess what the wattage would be for a 1 acre array. And in other words, you've got to find some way of correlating.
Okay, I'm gonna jump in and move this along. I'm gonna ask people in particular who haven't spoke. Vicky, what's your view on this?
Well, I'm just thinking about, if we were to have like neighbors getting together and wanting to do something small that would, benefit them, you know.
Prove that meter.
Well, yeah, just, you know, so that might fall into the medium category. And, it wouldn't make sense to limit that kind of thing to Route 10. So I do support having it, in, you know, kind of around town. And,
So you support the
the medians to be
Okay.
around town.
Right.
Yeah.
okay,
You know, if,
Yeah.
in that way, I don't think of it as being a commercial investment type of thing where somebody comes in and wants to develop it, kind of like a neighborhood project.
Yeah, it really depends on how many neighbors we're talking, but if
Right,
the example that Mark had given us was 10,
right.
and that's only like 100 megawatts, I think, or excuse me, kilowatts, something like that. Point one megawatt, and 0.1 megawatt is gonna be less than an acre,
Right,
so.
okay,
So-
so my sense of the board is that the board supports that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's up to
John,
10,000.
and the thing is that that would be a separate use because it would not be serving just one residence. So it's not an accessory use to that single residence, but it would be a use in and of itself that could go on somebody's property or on its own lot.
And they'd be the
A
host.
primary,
All right, well, I will
It could
go
be a
with
principal
a
use
sense.
if it was an empty, or it could go on to somebody's, same as a residential lot. So you could already have a house and a garage and you have the hillside that would be the best place for the array.
Right, they'd be the host.
They'd be the host, yeah.
All
Yep,
right,
exactly.
so
therefore it would not need a conditional use permit.
Well, I don't know.
I think it should still go through a conditional use.
I'm not saying that, cause I'm, you know, the accessory to the single residence, no. Something like that, I mean, it seems like, I don't know, I can't answer that, cause I haven't really thought about it, but I would like to. I'm not gonna make a decision, but it's in a category that we may wanna. I mean, I don't know, it could impact some other neighbors who weren't like buying into it, and so therefore. It might be a good idea to be able to have a public hearing on it and some review.
Yeah.
So that, you know, those neighbors who might be aggrieved for some reason could come in and gripe. And, but not necessarily have a gripe that would turn the project down. So I just think for that reason, maybe yes,
So
conditional.
would you have that kick in at 1 acre or a half an acre?
Whatever we say is a medium size.
The medium we were saying was somewhere
We said
between
2,000
a
and
fraction of an
10,000.
acre and
Oh.
1 acre.
Well, yeah, I mean, I just took it up to 1 acre. I don't. Yeah.
So maybe at a half an acre, have that kick in as a conditional use
well,
permit was required.
I guess, you know, because I was thinking about use more than size. You know what I'm saying? So I was thinking about something that goes beyond the residents, but the neighbors are sharing, but not as big as a large. And I wasn't thinking about size, so, I don't know, does half an acre sound good to everybody else? I was thinking more use.
I think as long as it's bigger than a small, then it should be subject to review.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I think just because other people in the neighborhood should have an opportunity to comment, who might be about it.
So anything over 2,000, or
Yeah,
anything over what we call 2,000, maybe if we call 2,000.2 acres, then
Okay.
anything over 0.2 acres.
yeah. Even if it's just being used for their property. Even if even if the electricity is just used on their property, it doesn't matter, right?
It appears that the 2,000 square feet was a 39 kilowatt system, and so
That
that's.
was my estimate,
So
based
that-
on,
You know, that's at least 3 or 4 houses.
Right.
Worth of power, so already that's,
Yeah, well,
you
that,
might potentially be able to feed your neighbor.
right, but that's, yeah,
On
that gives
small
leeway
system,
for
so
the
it's-
future. If people start using more and more electricity, that
Right.
gives a little leeway for,
Yeah,
yeah.
And I don't think you want to start talking about how much power you're getting off them because the technology's changing so fast.
Well, do
Right.
we, I guess the
Yeah.
other question
That's-
is,
that's
do we
right.
want to be reviewing anybody who is potentially setting up a net metering system, a group net metering system? Is there any reason why in particular we would want that?
Well, yes, because things would start crossing property lines, wouldn't they? Supply lines and.
Or you also,
Well,
again, if
it's
you
on the
start to
road.
get into a larger system, it could affect neighbors that are not part of this.
Yeah.
So you would want to, like Vicky said, you know, have John have a place to come and say, hey, this, I don't like this. And have their voice heard. May not change anything, but at least that it would give them the opportunity to say, hey, I'm not real thrilled with this idea. And, you know, the board would also have the ability to then require screening.
Well, in that case, permitting would have to kick in a lot lower than 2,000 square feet, or, you know, it would kick in at whatever we consider to be the delimiter between a residential system supplying one house and something more than that.
but somebody could have a really large array for their one house.
Right,
If
but
they
if,
wanted
but
to
if they,
sell a lot of
but
it.
we, you know, I mean, I suppose they're on the honor system for that. But if they're starting to sign up other people, then they're group net metering. And, or if they're trying to if they're going in with other people to build it, then they're probably group net metering, in which case, then you have this neighbor problem and neighbors that are not included, and then you want the permit to kick in, the conditional use permit.
Right,
I mean, is that all,
so
that's pretty much consistent with what you're saying. And I think
So it's sort of anything bigger than what you can fit on your house or with a couple of solar trackers.
right,
Anything bigger than that becomes,
becomes, you know, is that gonna be
Yeah.
too big a burden on
I,
planning board?
because right now, I think, I've seen a lot of houses, or some houses that have 2 solar trackers.
right?
Doesn't seem like anybody in town has 3 yet, you know, it's sort of limited to.
There's one over in Orford that's got 4, but
Oh, really?
yeah.
yeah, right on the ridge there.
Yeah, right on the
houses.
ridge, but
Oh, right.
but they may
right.
be a group net metering
I
situation
forgot
for all
about
I
Because
know.
Orford doesn't have zoning,
That's right.
Oh,
nothing at all.
You can do anything you want.
Not true, but
Well, I didn't even have to get a driveway permit.
but you're right, I've never
Very
seen anything more than 2 for a residence.
Yeah,
I mean,
Can we summarize where we are? So we're saying, I just want to get the general structure down. We can discuss the exact sizes later, but we're saying that the first part will be number 1, or whatever you want to call it, will be the small arrays on and around houses, right?
Right, residential only.
Well, it could be business. We're just saying, we don't have to define it as residence, but small arrays. Up to what?
Up to, you mean square footage?
Or
Yeah.
wattage.
No, we're not doing wattage.
Okay.
We're doing actual area.
Well, the thing is, they may be rooftop or they may be ground, so we're only talking ground here, right?
Yeah, we don't care about rooftop.
Right.
Anybody can do anything they want rooftop. So the small arrays on the
So
ground.
Yeah,
up to
we're gonna
what?
get back to square feet of the entire thing because it's much, much less than an acre. How many?
Oh, yeah, well, what if somebody put in 3 trackers? Would you count how much area that those 3 take up? And what would
Yeah,
it be? It depends how
sort of.
close together they are.
Well, I guess you'd sort of picture a fence around,
Yeah,
and then what's the area enclosed by that fence?
would be much.
Well, they gotta be like 25 feet apart and they're about 22 feet each one
Yeah,
wide. So depending upon how you arrange them, if you arrange them laterally, they're,
yeah, I think maybe half an acre would be a good number to pick, because it seems like,
You mean up in the first part?
Well, it seems,
yeah,
for small, you're, if you have enough land, the maximum you can build for structures, 7,000 square feet. And why would you limit solar arrays when you don't limit other buildings? You can build 7,000 square feet of building. And if, let's say you have a house that's 1,000 square feet, why would you limit the person that other 6,000 square feet that they could build anything else?
right, and 7,000 square feet is approximately 1/6 of an acre.
well, because somebody's going to say a house is a house and solar panel array is a solar panel array. And one of them I like to see or don't mind, and the other one I don't like. That's what,
But if they don't like a barn, they don't want to have, see a building or an outbuilding. There's no difference between a building and a solar array.
Well, there is still a lot of people.
Well,
yeah, I think there is. That's.
There's a lot of things that, people don't,
Yeah,
but if you don't limit them on structures, why should you limit them on?
Right, yeah, that's
So
true.
it's
Arrays.
a matter of taste. I
It's,
mean, people will say, if you don't let me have my solar array, I'm bringing in a barn and I'm gonna raise pigs, it's kind of,
or so you put up a barn, you put up 7,000 square feet of building and put solar arrays on it.
right.
well,
Yeah.
it seems to me that, I mean, I kind of feel like what we did last year is pretty good. I mean, I think the 2,000 square feet is pretty easy to measure and certainly for the smaller ones, I think it's an appropriate unit of measure. I think for the medium, I'm happy to go down to 10,000 square feet. I'm also probably happy to leave it at 20, but
So
Yeah,
here's maybe a reason why it would. Apropos what David Robbins was saying, and what I was hearing in the discussion about review. At a certain point, the fact people may want to have review when you're getting over a certain amount of square footage.
Right, that's what we have to decide, yeah.
Yeah,
and that
so,
could be over the 2,000.
and that could be over the 2,000.
Yeah,
And then, yeah, at that point, it gets reviewed, and then the next
right,
determinant is how large do we accept as medium, and then from there on, we go to large, and
up to 7 acres, yeah.
And I think we were doing the 7 acres because our reference data was referring to 1 megawatt takes about 5 to 7 acres, and then we were talking about 1 megawatt because that's the maximum size of group net metered. Maximum size system that can be group net metered, and I think that's as far as we're thinking we want to go. We're not looking for larger commercial, which could be even larger than that. Is that correct? At the present time.
Well, that wasn't, yeah, that didn't, we did have a question about over, and it got 33%, but it got 2/3 against. But I'd like to go back to the,
Right.
I'm trying to understand the structure. So the small array up to 2,000 square feet, anything over are we saying anything over 2,000 square feet up to a certain amount has got to get reviewed?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
No, just everything, yeah, up to 7 acres, right, it's gotta get reviewed.
well, but
Okay,
anything
so
above
what, is there a distinction we're making between? Okay, yeah, we are. We're saying that the mediums can go in all those places in town. Right, so that would be anything that's not multi-acre?
That's right,
right,
anything
Yeah.
anything that's less than an acre can go anywhere.
Is that what we're saying? Less than an acre?
Right, I mean, the only reason I'm.
Okay, no, I'm just asking because I want to take notes.
well, no, if it's medium, it's up to 10,000 square feet.
Which is an acre, roughly.
An acre.
No, an acre's 40,
No,
No, needs
a
an
10,
acre.
we're talking drip edge of 10,000.
but we can't get rid of.
No, forget, okay, but let's keep it in acreage. So, but
All right,
it's,
so then if you keep it in acreage, then it's 1 acre, but I'm
It's
just
1
saying,
acre.
1 acre is going to be roughly a 10,000 square foot array.
okay,
That's-
yeah, let's just say an acre.
Yeah, but doesn't matter.
So you can have an acre in Lyme that goes in all those places up to an acre. But needs CUP, conditional
Right.
use permit. Okay,
Yeah.
Right,
and then, okay, is that right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
good.
Okay, and then over an acre, where you're getting into multi-acre stuff, that moves into the solar district. Right? Or
right,
no? Okay, so then anything over an acre goes into the third section, which is in the
Right.
large solar district.
okay.
Anything more than an acre?
Up
Yeah.
to 7 acres,
Between 1 and 7 acres is in the large
exactly.
district.
I
And that-
thought it would be between 1 and less than the 5 acre could go in any of the 4 districts.
That's
No,
not what we said last year.
No,
actually, yeah, well, technically you did. You said a drip edge of 20,000 square feet could go, which was a large array.
Yeah,
Could go,
except
and a
that we-
large
we-
array, you said
we
could
didn't
go to
understand
any
what
one
we
of
were
the
saying.
3 districts.
so how many acres is 20,000? How many acres would it actually be if it was 20,000 square feet? You're saying
That
20,000
would be
square feet?
about 2.5.
right. And that's why we didn't vote on it, because we realized we were confused about the size. So let's just go by what we're deciding tonight. Is the board okay with between 1 and 7 acres being in the
Okay,
large district? Or
Sure.
no?
yeah,
Yes,
yeah, I think
yes.
that's right. That's
Yeah.
what we,
Yep.
yeah, that's what we
Yep.
agreed on, right?
And then between.
And then between residential and 1 acre can go in any of the 4 districts where we had previously
Right.
said they were
Right.
allowed.
And
Right.
Okay,
between,
yeah, okay, that's
and
right.
between 2,000 square feet and 1 acre would still have conditional use review.
Right.
And the
Yeah.
small one.
Good point.
Are
Yeah.
we gonna stick with the we're not gonna stick with the 2,000 square feet. We're gonna define some other rooftop or ground mounted residential solar array.
No, rooftop.
Does not require a conditional use permit.
Rooftop is absolutely free.
Yeah, there's no-
The 2,000 feet, and I'm using the figure you're using, but the 2,000 feet is also essentially free on your property, up to 2,000 square feet.
Two,
Okay,
yeah,
Is that right? Am I understanding that?
so you wanna allow up to, what you're saying then is 2,000 square feet of land or 2,000 square feet of panels?
Land.
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 Land,
Yeah, we're only talking
okay,
about.
so I don't know what, 2,000, what percentage of an acre is that?
Well, it's 43,000 in an acre.
I think it's 5,200 in an acre, isn't it?
That's too.
No, that's feet in
43,
a mile.
560.
40,000.
Oh, thank you, right.
43,560. So I'm saying 42.
Engineering education kicks in, boof.
Right, so yeah, we'll do it by the mile. All right, so 4,300, so it's a little under, it's like 4/10 of an acre.
That's
400.
right, 4.46 acres,
4.6.
no, 4/100ths of an acre.
Yeah.
4/100ths,
4/100.
right,
So it's fine.
Yeah,
so that's about, I just looked up what the acreage of a typical home ground mounted system, and that's 1.4100ths of an acre. So this is roughly 3 times. Our threshold is about 3 times what somebody's gonna need for their residence.
right. Or you could look at it.
Right
as-
now for
It's
a
something
10
that's
kilowatt.
100 feet long by 20 feet wide. You could look at it
Okay.
that way too.
Okay, but I guess we are just saying that just so we can get the sense of what size
Right.
We're
So,
talking
and it sounds like it,
in
would-
acres, not in drip edge.
right, and it sounds like it would work.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
that's
fair.
enough of a margin, and
Right.
as Dave said, that it's consistent then with the building regulations.
Okay,
Okay, so let me review again. Small arrays of up to 2,000 square feet are essentially permitted. From 2,000 feet to an acre, 2,000 on up, basically needs, not basically, needs CUP review. And then the
and they
third,
can go anywhere,
they can't go anywhere, but they can go in the districts
right.
that were pointed out.
in those districts, yes, right.
The
And
the
then-
rural, the rural, or the rural, the
Commercial and skiway.
commercial and skiway. Yeah, which,
And then
Includes-
also, are you gonna include the solar district as whatever you're gonna define?
Oh, yeah,
And then
yeah.
from
But
1
that-
acre to
that's-
1 acre to 4 acres, where will those have to go in the solar district? Yeah, they will, because they're
Yes.
multi-acre, they're
Right.
multi-acre.
multi-acre.
Right.
But David Robbins, isn't, the solar district isn't that all rural? Except for the commercial?
That's true, it's a rural and commercial district,
So it's
so,
already included.
so,
Right,
So I'm still having difficulty thinking that anything over an acre is gonna be forced into a 3-mile section of road in town. That's our great way to our community,
yeah,
that we're gonna be driving, everybody has to drive through it.
right.
We're either gonna have solar installations that we're all gonna be looking at,
Well, or how
Or-
well they have to be screened, I mean, that's.
Well,
or
that's-
we're gonna have no solar.
When you look at the replies, where it's visually unobtrusive, has almost the same response rate as Route 10 south of the Common.
Right,
So,
so they've gotta be visually you can't see them.
Well, that's one of the arguments that Mark made in his email is,
Yeah.
do you,
If
the
you're
question
gonna
is
do that.
inartfully worded. But
Yeah.
should we read it to the response to be that that you add the screening, the amount that's, you know,
No, you cannot add these percentages and infer you have a majority, because the instructions on this question were
Check all
select
that
all that
apply,
apply,
right,
which means that one person could have checked Route 10 south of the Lime Common and visually unobtrusive.
right.
Just one person. So you cannot add these percentages and infer that you create a majority
Right.
of votes. The only thing you can do is say 50% wanted, and that's the highest percentage, wanted it along Route 10.
yes, but it is possible at least that it's not the same person, that you've got different people, and so.
Oh,
there
well,
is
we
a-
could make that argument. It's not
There-
very
it-
good.
Well,
Oh, no, I think that's a very,
possible that there is majority support for screened, well-screened, large or multi-acre solar arrays in areas other than south of the common that are captured in this, but
I don't think
there's
we-
no way to tease it
Yeah,
out.
we
with
can't get
certain-
that. We can't get them.
well, we discussed this last week, and there seemed to be a consensus that there's a majority for Route 10 South. I mean, I don't have any data.
50%.
We hit 50%, but we had enough other feedback to take us, you know, at least several people over. I think that's very obvious.
Were we still 50% after
I think it
the,
was like 49.5 or something, but you see, you can also consider the folks who said anywhere
okay, so
as being tolerant.
anywhere wasn't actually on that question.
No, I pulled it out as a frequent response to other.
But you didn't chart how many people said anywhere plus something else, probably. So you don't know that you can add that in.
If you want me to do that analysis, I
Well, I
can.
mean,
Yeah,
that's
it's
the only
probably
way
gonna
to
be
know.
none.
Can I just suggest something? Because I think we're being a little bit overly fastidious. Last week, we seemed to agree that the Route 10 thing, that there was enough solid indication that we had a majority. And that there was enough indication with the unobtrusive that we probably had a majority. I mean, to put anybody through teasing that out, I just don't think is worth it.
Well, my only point is that last week we didn't actually consider what the way the question was worded and the way it was answered. I mean, you guys went through the questions. You saw as well as I did that a lot of these roads were checked with every single person. And I didn't actually notice whether it was roads or where I could see it, but I saw multiple checks on each one of those
Mhm.
things. And if that's true, then you can't add up these percentages. And that was the basis of our argument, that a majority had selected Route 10. That was the basis of what we came to that conclusion. And when I thought about it, day before yesterday, I said, that's not right. We can't go that far. We don't know that. We can go to 50%, but that's about it.
Well,
I could do a little more work if you'd like to see if I can figure out how many people answered various combinations.
look, I'm really comfortable, just speaking for myself, that we have 50% in that, for that zone, 50% plus over for that area.
I'm not sure it matters. If we have to pick an area, we know that Route 10 South has got to be the one.
I think we're there. I mean, I don't.
Well, there's no question that we're there on that. The question is, are we there on other areas too? Look, I don't have a dog in this fight. Personally, I'm one of the people who answered no place. So, but, if you have a bunch of people who said anywhere, and then you have 49% of the people who said some other zone, then mathematically you have a majority of support for that zone, and,
Yeah.
do with that what you will, but,
Yeah, we just don't know if they're the same people. That's the.
Well, I mean, look,
Well, you
what
could-
we can.
require going back and figuring out.
What we can say is that it's likely, I don't know what that was, like that was 20 people or whatever, with this, with it anywhere.
Yeah,
You know, so it's about 20 people. You know, there's probably like at the very least 5 people who didn't check them all and do that. I mean, you know, it's just within a margin of error, I can live with that.
I think it's okay to start as long as we recognize that if there really aren't any good sites,
Yeah. well, that's
we
what-
need to then come back and revisit it, because
Right,
that's sort of what happened with, you know, some of the like tries at senior housing
Right.
and nobody could make it work.
right. I mean, we can just see how it plays out. I mean, you know, if we realize that
Well,
there's no, you know, there's no way
And the
to put
truth
anything
is-
there, we can change it.
Come March, when a decision is made by the town, if the town doesn't like the idea, then
Right.
it's not gonna pass.
Back to the-
But it'll be a puzzlement whether it's because they wanted more or wanted less.
Yeah,
Then
Oh,
that's why I put money in my budget for another survey.
Another survey.
I don't think that, yeah.
so another question
Hmm.
another question for the board is, do you want, Rich Brown last week was concerned that the grande size might be rejected by the town and wanted to split this into 2 amendments. What do people want to do?
I think it's smart.
Yeah, I think it's probably a good idea.
It's,
do you think it's necessary?
yes, yeah, because I think the whole thing could go down,
Yeah,
and we don't want that.
I think it makes it easier for people to vote too, because they're not voting on such a big thing. They're looking at 2 different things and they, you know.
So we would need,
Supported by the planning board,
Yes,
so.
exactly.
yep,
so that would mean that parts 1 and 2 would go in one amendment and parts 3 would go in the other amendment.
Yeah,
Just to. I'm fine with that. In fact, that suits me, but just to point out, another possible consequence of that structure is that you might have people who would vote for the whole thing, but vote no on the large systems. And this gives them the opportunity to do that, so it may make the likelihood of the large, the provision relating just to large structures more likely to fail.
I think that's a good point.
But on the other hand, it might make it the small and medium more likely to pass.
Yeah.
Because somebody might say, well, I don't want large at all, and they vote against the whole thing.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
So
the
that's
question
the
is,
other way
what
to
if,
look
what
at
if somebody who favors the small and medium but disfavors the large do? Do they suck it up and
Right.
vote for the whole thing because they want the 2 little pieces, or do they
Right.
vote no on the whole thing?
We don't
I
know.
suspect you probably have people that in both camps, depending on how
Yeah.
strongly they
Yeah,
feel
so
about it.
it comes out equal, so, you know.
Maybe, who
Yeah,
knows?
who knows?
I-
Did we do
All right, so we're gonna cut it into 2. We're having the multi-acre section. The next thing we need to do is to see if we can really make it viable. And if we can't, then we have to take some other action.
Well, and we have to get legal input to figure out what we're gonna do on these 2.
Right, that is,
questions.
yeah,
Local
that,
usage and on the question of,
Trees.
But I think we can work in parallel.
yeah, for sure. All right, so going forward, I need to send those questions. David Robbins and I will work on those questions to Laura.
yeah,
What?
Yes,
yes,
Yeah, okay.
agreed.
And what do we need to do? The next thing we need to do is come up with the exact wording for each area. I mean, I think we're pretty close. And in terms of the multi-acre area, we need to make sure we're not fooling ourselves and that these things are viable. And
so it's along those lines, I did do a series of maps for everybody. That I'll pass around. the first set that are stapled together, these are the conservation districts. They are, all I did was ag soil, steep slopes, and the ridgeline district. So those are the big ones. There's a little bit of wetlands, but not a huge amount, so I didn't include that. And that gives you just an idea of what districts are out there. And then the fourth one I did, I pulled to the best of my ability, and it's not perfect, it's not exactly complete, because I can see some errors in it, but it's an older conservation district map. Not conservation easement map. So this is the fourth.
So, David, on these maps, the area that is white, that is on, that isn't green or checked, is the area where
Yes.
these systems would be omitted.
No, that's the district. So on the top one, I think is the agricultural soils, so the green area
Yep,
is the agricultural soils. Then, I think the next one's the steep slopes or the
Ridgeline.
ridgeline. So that's where the ridgeline district is, and then the hashed area on the last one is where there are steep slopes.
so if you overlaid this, is there any property that's not in the conservation district? I mean, that's the kind of
Good question.
I mean, you know,
Yeah, that's what we
this looks bad.
I don't think there's any way to do this without removing some overlays. I don't see it. We're gonna have,
These are the conservation easements. And
Oh, nice.
David, is it easy to overlay all these three together to see what's left? I mean, all the.
Yeah, that's kind of what you need, right? is to
Yeah.
see what-
Yeah,
That's what I was asking.
We have a Venn diagram here with, that encapsulates nothing.
right, then, yeah,
Then we'd have to expand
So,
or allow, more generously allow.
but I'm not sure that conservation easements preclude. So it depends how.
it depends on how it's, but you at least should be aware where there are
Yeah,
easements.
okay.
Conservation easements are owned, are they not, by like Epperl Valley Land Trust and
Or
those?
the
No, they
Forest
don't
Society.
own,
See,
I mean,
they don't
I
own the
call-
land, they own an easement on it.
That's right.
They
but-
own the,
but
they
they
own the
would-
development rights.
So they would be able to permit,
Well,
No,
I
No.
called,
They're limited on what they can do, but
I
it depends
called,
on what the easement says and what, how,
Right,
what sort of
because
limitation.
I was curious on ours, which was done in 1987, so it was a while ago. And I called, John Plummer, who's the monitor for the Forest Society. Our easement, asked him, his opinion was that we could put solar on our easement, on our land, because we can do anything that pertains to agriculture. So if that electricity was used for agriculture, I mean, that was his opinion. I didn't go to the high up people at the Forest Society, but that's what he said.
well, is it being used for agriculture? Or is it being used for your house? I mean, you don't,
Yeah, well, that's
well,
right.
that's,
I don't know
yeah.
whether you have to use it all for agriculture. or
Well,
whether you
I
use
think-
Some
I
of it
think-
for
I
agriculture.
think if, you know, if
Yeah.
you're, like it says, for the purposes of agriculture, you can have structures.
Then,
But I mean, if that's lighting your barn or running your osmosis machine or what your
Right.
pumps for.
Yeah.
Collecting sap, I don't know.
yeah, so anyway.
the woman from Revision, and I'm blanking on her name now. Do you remember? her name?
Beth,
Yeah,
Beth,
Beth.
yeah. Beth told us, and she was in conservation before she went into solar stuff. She said they're just staying away from conservation easements. Because it's just not worth it for them.
Well,
And my impression, and I have conservation easement on my land, is that unless you specifically accepted, made an exemption for solar arrays, it's not gonna fly for the most part.
well, I kind of disagree because if it's seen as an accessory structure to your residence and you're allowed to have a home,
that's right.
then it would be allowed. It might not be, you know, so it's allowed in the residential area. I don't know if your easement excludes where your house is.
No, I'm not talking about if you're, you can put up stuff on around your house, but
Right,
I'm talking about a A significant.
large. Yeah, a large would probably
More
be,
than one house needs.
large would be probably a commercial use that would not be allowed.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Cause the easements don't cover.
I mean, I guess if it served all the farmers in town, sold them all the power, then you could say it's agricultural.
Right.
But, yeah,
The limitations on conservation easements are not uniform though. It's not like.
it's
there's
not
one
uniform, you're right.
Set of language.
Depends how it's
So
written.
you really want to look at the language. Maybe if you were selling all the power to a nonprofit, I don't know. maybe
No.
not, but-
The only reason I included those as a map is just for people to be aware where they are.
No, it's nice to know, yeah.
But it's,
Well, and I think as we start looking at clear cutting or cutting in the woods, you know, I mean, I think that these conservation easements help identify, you know, wildlife corridors and wildlife, you know, wildlife land that we don't probably want to fragment. And then getting back to the easement, you know, we've got a couple of easements on our property and one of them is actually owned by the town of Lyme. But the most recent one, yeah, solar is definitely not allowed.
There's a couple different purposes. There's, I mean, you know, people think of, you know, that it's conservation, but in fact, there's also, you can get a conservation easement for historically valuable property if you preserve you can get a conservation easement if you allow public access to scenic, important scenic areas. And so some of those purposes might be consistent with putting a large solar array. I don't know. I'm just pointing out that there's some.
Right.
yes,
I don't think any of them are written, you know, recent, or, you know, except for very recently that would even address solar.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
and like I said, the easement, just be aware, it's an older set of data. It is not completely up to date, so there are some newer easements that I know are missing from.
David, I mean, the significant thing, I think, for the purposes of this committee is to see if, when you overlay all of these maps, if there's any land left.
Yeah, that's.
Oh,
That's.
There you go.
That's it? Oh, so it's the stuff in white then that's allowed?
The gray,
Yeah.
So there is some property
Yeah.
where you could put one of these things.
I can actually take.
Although
I
it
take
looks
that
like,
off.
it looks like,
Yeah, the white area is the
Yeah.
area that does not have a conservation district. I have not included the easements in this.
Uh-huh.
I could throw them up there if you want.
No, there's some right along the road that are okay.
Yeah, they look like they're
Yeah.
not conservation easements
Yeah,
either.
yeah.
and-
Yes, yes.
down there, the two big white ones on either side of the.
No,
That's Crossroads Academy.
Whose is that?
that's
Crossroads
Crossroads, but I
Academy.
thought that had an easement on it.
There is an easement on most of that, yes. That's what I'm saying, that the easement map isn't complete. That's specifically the one I'm
Right,
referring to.
So that
But
that
that's,
essentially takes out all of Route 10 South.
Well.
Except for-
What's this right here?
That's what we
that's
just said.
Crossroads Academy.
Crossroads and then there's a lot across the street.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
Yeah, it's a
Purcell-
lot
is
across
that
the street.
Purcell, the Pondview.
Pondview is, this area where you see this steep slopes. Pondview is rated over in here.
Okay, and then that next one is, well, I call it the Graff property, I don't know what.
I don't
the
know.
house that's down below the road.
Yeah.
Yep, that's that little tiny house and then
When where Anne Bracken used to
Yes,
live.
exactly.
It's
Yeah.
real New
Where's
New
Crossroads
England.
on this game?
Crossroads is right over in this area.
And it,
And
and
that's
any
that.
place that's north is a beaver bog.
This area right in here, this is where the condos
Yeah,
are, and then, there is a conservation easement in this back area.
so the practical answer to the question is
Not much.
not much, yeah.
Yeah, well, Bailey,
And then these
Bailey's
two
right
lots
there.
are, Brett Ryan's,
Those are Brett's.
and then this is Rich's sister's, and then this is your lot, Rich,
Right.
or one of your lots, and then,
Yeah.
across the street.
That's fine, yeah.
and where is Scott Bailey, right, above, right north of
That
the,
little finger,
Yeah,
right,
this
yeah,
right
right
here,
there.
this is Scott Bailey's field.
Yeah,
Right here.
that
This
finger of
Guys, we really
agricultural.
don't want right on Route 10, so look to the east, because there's some fairly large areas to the east
right,
that, Well, not the one that goes up.
Well, Scott Bailey's is nicely shielded
Yeah, it is.
from
Yeah.
view.
It is. But, you know, we don't want it right on the road, so that there is land that is not in conservation districts, probably it's wooded. But, you know, it's more off of, Washburn Hill or, well, I guess that's Preston more.
It could be hidden more.
Yeah, so that's, I think, positive. There's some,
Well, how close to the road does it have to be to meet this,
Well, Beth was saying 1,000
feet?
feet, but
Yeah.
I don't know if that's hard or fast, you know.
So what's 1,000 feet on that scale?
1 inch is 1,500 feet now.
An inch.
So on those maps,
So have to be within,
3/4 of an inch.
Where is your inch up at the top?
here, if you hold on a second.
to be within an inch of Route 10.
If we look at Route 10,
Well, yeah, she said that's what they like. I don't know, I mean, they might go further.
it's hard to see.
Who is the
but-
person who said this?
All right, so that's an inch, what you've got there,
The
what
woman
you're
that
dragging around
Came
there?
and
Yeah.
spoke to us.
Okay.
I missed that,
Yeah.
or it's 1,000 feet.
She's with
Oh
Revision
my goodness, it's
Oh,
Christmas.
The commercial.
Commercial.
Yeah, I know revision.
Yeah, she's one of the top people at Revision.
It's interesting because when you go across the river in Vermont, there's a bunch of bigger solar arrays that are like right next to the freeway or right next to Route 5.
I know.
Yes.
Well, I mean, but,
Vermont's much more solar friendly than New Hampshire.
but is the
Well, it's-
interspace supposed to be, you know?
it's all about like how you think about solar. I mean, if we say, oh, it's right in the gateway to our community, well, people might say, oh, this is a very forward-thinking community. Look at them, they have solar. Rather than that it's a bad thing.
Depends your point of view,
It
right?
does.
Yeah.
But the question we're dealing with here isn't good or bad. It's, we're talking about viability.
Right.
So let's stay focused on that. Is it viable here?
Well, it looks better if you allow it on ag soil.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm thinking, is that we're gonna have to relax certain overlays for this to work.
Yeah.
Do we have the ability to do that?
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
well, we can propose it, the town has to endorse it, but yes.
Yeah, we could just keep soils of national importance and relax the other two.
Yeah, how's that gonna go over at town meeting? We're proposing to take agricultural soils and cover them with some large solar arrays.
Well, we're not doing it. The owner would have to make that call, whether or not he's gonna lease it to us.
I understand, but it's
Yeah, but we-
protecting a
we-
resource that takes, you know, thousands of years to create and putting trenching.
Temporary structures that
No, they-
can be
they-
pulled off after 25 years.
Yeah, by
So-
heavy equipment that compacts the soil and it
For the
ruins.
good of the planet. You know, I mean, I think it's arguable. And they're doing it all over the place. Farmers are making money off.
We don't know if it's really gonna be a net plus in the end, okay,
Yeah,
so
what it costs.
Anything's gonna be. a
we
net
don't
plus
know,
in the end. I mean,
but so I,
We
I
need
would-
something to tell ourselves that.
And I think within 30 years, all these solar panels will be totally obsolete. We won't even have them. They'll be trying to
Yeah.
get rid of
Oh, I
them.
mean,
there's some really bad.
John, you gotta stop this whole
Well,
direction of
all
this
of this is
conversation. It's
outside
getting
of-
nihilistic.
Have you had enough?
Yeah, we've done enough.
You want to be put out of your misery?
Guessing the future.
All right, so I just want to make sure about the marching orders. Again, what do you want to give yourselves as homework? Because we're really up against a tight window of time.
Yep.
So, does an individual, or do you want everybody? I mean, if everybody does it, it'll just be chaos, but is there anybody who wants to write up the ordinance just as a generally with what we have now? I'm talking to myself, aren't I?
Be two different,
So,
two
All right,
different.
you know, yes,
different
Vicky, were you gonna say something?
I was going to say, that we need to have two amendments, and it's not just one. And
well, small. Have we already sort of done that?
Yeah, I mean,
Is that-
we've got a good start here, We just,
Where is it?
getting, when are we meeting next?
Next
Next
Thursday?
Thursday.
Next week.
Yeah, I just can't do that.
Okay, this is what I am gonna,
John,
I'm gonna write up a summary,
Can we
the
assign it to
general
Rich?
summary of what we said tonight.
Yeah.
And I may add some stuff, may add some questions. And I will send it out to David and the whole group. Don't take it as gospel or whatever you want to call it. It's just a summary and you can tear it apart all you want. Is that okay?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
So John, what about the conditional use? Do we have to write all of that up?
we have, yes, we do. We have a decent start on it, but yes.
I have some.
Hey, Tim, think about it this way, that if it doesn't pass, then no. You don't have to write anything, so waiting until after,
Oh, really? So we don't have to do all that before?
right, and I wouldn't, I'd consider it, but I wouldn't worry about it until you get closer. Because if it doesn't pass, then,
Yeah, that's a good point, yeah.
you've done a lot of work.
Nothing.
Anyway, the map that I have up there now, what that's showing is all the areas that have a south-facing slope. Basically, from 135 degrees to 225 degrees,
Mhm.
that area faces that basically south,
Yeah.
south in that arc.
Right.
So I did a 90-degree arc from 135 to 225.
Mhm.
Does that include steep slopes though?
That is just basically what I did is I used the LiDAR data, so it took a little cube about, I guess there were a foot by a foot. And it looks at the slope of that cube. And says what direction that cube would be.
so how much of a slope is going to inhibit
Yeah, that's the thing.
a solar panel array? I mean, they can tilt them any angle
Just
they
thinking
want.
very specifically at the bottom end of Scott's Field, it slopes to the north,
Right,
but you get the sun by just.
right, what I'm saying, we can, look at what you want for a slope, and I can calculate, and this is all derived from a slope map.
Mhm.
But this is just showing that this area typically, most of the stuff on the eastern side of the road, has a fair amount of south-facing
Right.
areas.
Might be better.
Yeah, so you're, that it just, in addition those areas, it's definitely, Scott's Field is not shown, the Scott's Field is right in here.
Right,
And so it slopes to the north. So yes, it is an area that is,
But
um,
Yeah,
so if I could also add areas that have a shallow slope to the north. But again, it's a matter of how much time do I
define
have?
shallow.
Yeah, but I just don't see, I mean, I think you probably have to be an engineer or somebody with a lot of experience building these things before you know how much of a slope is going to be
Right, well,
too
that's
much of a
why
slope
I
to
have.
try and compensate for with tilting the panel and spacing them better, so that they don't shadow each other. So it's,
No,
we
you
we
build
don't
a
have that.
structure big enough, no matter what you wanna do, that's. Just how much material are you gonna
Right.
use to build that?
But at this point, we're excluding them on the steep slope, in the steep slope district, right?
Right.
Unless we decide to change that.
Which is,
So-
steep slope is what percent?
20%, and it's 20% measured over 100 feet. So if you have 50 feet that is
Dead flat.
dead flat and 50 feet that's 20%. It is going to call that whole area. A steep slope.
I thought you said 20% over 100 feet. So if 50 is flat and 50 is 20.
But you're gaining a 20-foot elevation change over 100 feet.
20, oh, you said 20%, I was thinking.
They're not the slope, but it's, well.
Because the 20%
average
slope over 50 feet would not be enough.
Right,
See,
you have to add that extra 50 feet and then, but that's still because of the steepness of
Still
the,
a change.
you have the change. So, and like I said, this is just to show you, you know, that there's south-facing slopes here, that we're not looking at all north-facing slopes. And it's,
I'm not quite sure.
Is there a
Yes.
way to do that slope thing? Is there an instrument that tells you?
oh, yeah, you can
Hard to figure out who is
go steal it from Scott Bailey at the highway department, they have a slope.
Dartmouth.
Yeah. Can you use the altitude thing on your phone? Just walk 100 feet down and see, and then subtract?
I don't know.
Well, I have an app on my phone that,
I think it's south.
No,
south
tell you what,
of Western.
No,
You can-
Dartmouth. I think
There's
it's not.
probably an app that, or there are apps that you
Okay,
can.
yeah,
It's
just
which
between
side
them.
of Washburn Hill,
Yeah.
which
This-
side?
this app,
I'm not- kind of
It's on
You know,
the
it is, I-
south, south
yeah.
of
you know, I can-
Washburn.
you know,
So it's one of
set
the.
Yeah.
a post out at 100 feet, set this on the same elevation and aim
Oh,
it,
and then
Right.
aim it.
and it'll tell me the
Who
slope.
owns that?
Cool.
That's
Okay,
that little
okay.
place
So what's it called?
that just got.
Ditropa, DIOTTRA is the name of the app. I'm not sure it's even available anymore. I've had it for years and,
Third of an acre.
Yeah.
I don't get rid of it because it's a great little
Yeah,
app.
this is
But,
Kurt's claims
Yeah.
place,
you
and then
know,
that's Abby's,
Yeah, there's instruments.
and then that's.
The Scott has
There's instruments. It's because
Here.
Is there a big
Yeah, we use it.
farm?
John, are we,
Yeah, yeah.
are we
That's
pretty
it,
much
so
wrapping
this
at this
is-
point? I
yeah, is that it?
apologize, I
Yeah.
have to meet someone at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, I mean, I thought we were shutting this road show down.
Yeah.
Move
okay.
to adjourn?
Yes,
All right.
Thank you, guys.
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Well, no,
I will say.
Charles Taylor.
Down here.
Fitzwilliam.
It's mostly
And Heber.
mhm.
with a seasonal high water
What
about
these guys are doing.
2 inches below. So I think it's specific.
I don't know where we
Consideration of some of this ag soil.
Now we gotta look at four sites on other parts of.
Yeah, this is a good.